Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo wants the U.S. to diplomatically recognize Taiwan.
The Taiwanese people deserve the world's respect for continuing down this free, democratic, and sovereign path.
Pompeo was speaking during a visit to the self-ruled island where he met with President Tsai. Responding to questions, he said Beijing has a deep intent to project power globally and is watching the situation between Russia and Ukraine. And joining me now is Chang, author of The Great U.S.-China Tech War and the Coming Collapse of China. Gordon, welcome back. Always so great to see you. Let's talk about former U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, his visit to Taiwan, and his comments about diplomatically recognizing Taiwan as a sovereign nation. How significant is that?
It's extremely significant because he was Secretary of State. Now, of course, he didn't do it in the Trump administration, but that was because that would have been breaking established U.S. policy. But what he is he's voicing concerns that we have heard throughout the American political spectrum. And really, this is paving the way for much closer relations between Washington and Taipei. So I think that this is going to be a landmark request, and I think other people are going to follow it.
And Gordon, as you know, the war in Ukraine has brought up concerns over whether a similar situation will actually take place in Taiwan. However, Taiwan's government said earlier this week that people should abandon the Ukraine today, Taiwan tomorrow mindset because, quote, in all areas, the two cannot be compared. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. And what do you think?
Of course they can be compared because you have a major power trying to grab territory which it thinks is its own. And in both cases, you have a people who are determined to defend what they have. In the case of Ukraine, I think that the heroics that we are seeing are really starting to resonate in Taiwan. But also in Taiwan, they understand that they have to defend themselves. And one of the things you're hearing among Taiwanese people is that the island's going to have to do much more to protect itself against China, that it can't rely on the international community. And so, therefore, I think China is sort of in a position where Taiwan is now much more prepared to defend itself than it was 2 weeks ago.
I want to talk now about the relationship between China and Russia. And do you think that relationship has changed at all since the invasion of Ukraine?
In the beginning of the invasion, China green-lighted that, and it green-lighted it with that 5,000-word joint statement, the No Limits Partnership, and the announcement of all the commodity deals. I think, though, Beijing is now getting to be a little bit embarrassed and very surprised. I think that Beijing believed that the Russians would roll over Ukraine, which would fall within hours, because that's what China actually says about Taiwan, that when China invades, and that's their words, they believe ours. What's going on right now is Beijing must be reassessing that because they're seeing much more stout defense, how a small country from various ways is able to hold off a bigger one. And that lesson is not lost in Beijing. And of course, it's not lost in Taiwan either. So right now, I think China's a little bit embarrassed about their support for Vladimir Putin and probably trying to distance themselves, not from a substantive point of view, because they're still financing the Russians, but I think from an appearance point of view, they would rather appear to be more neutral.
And Gordon, we have probably 20 seconds left or so, but quickly, I'd like to get your final thoughts on all what you see playing out in Ukraine and also how China may factor in.
Well, Russia has decided it's going to use everything to go in and take out Ukraine. We should be prepared for Russia to use weapons of mass destruction, either chemical weapons or even tactical nukes. Right now, this is a very dangerous situation for Putin. He's going to do all that he can and whatever weapon he has in his arsenal.
All right, Gordon, thank you so much. Appreciate your time as always.
Thank you, Tracy.